I'm Callie and welcome to Kapowski Reads. So like so many other readers, I love a good series, but I don't tend to finish series that often, and I kind of want to do something about that. At the moment I have 28 series that I'm partway through reading. To be honest, 28 doesn't feel like that many, but there are so many series that I would like to read, and I kind of would quite like to keep my series tally at under 30 if possible. Although now that I think about it, I'm fairly certain that I've missed a few off of my list, so I probably am way over 28 series, but we're just gonna go with 28. Of these series, there are a few that I'm either quite close to the end of, or that I own the entire series, so theoretically I could finish it if I just read books that I already own. So I am hoping, and I'm gonna try to finish 5 of my series that I'm currently partway through. The first series that I would really love to finish is the Crowther and Westerman series by Imogen Robertson. This is a 5-book series, and until a couple of days ago I thought I had read 4 of the books, but it turns out that I haven't read the first book of the series. And I know that that seems strange, but I got all of these books from my local library, so I read them in the order in which they were received, which was not numerical, and I knew I had book 4 left, but I just thought surely I'd read book 1, but I hadn't. I have since bought book 1, so it is entirely possible that I could finish this series, and I really enjoyed it when I read it, so I have no idea why I haven't finished it. So this series is set in the 18th century, and it features Westerman, who is a wife and mother, very well off, and Crowther, who is an extremely wealthy bachelor, and together they form a forensic duo, and they solve crimes and mysteries, and it's really a very exciting series. And as the series progresses, we get more of the secrets that Westerman and Crowther hold are revealed. And I just find it absolutely fascinating reading about a woman in the 18th century solving crimes using science. One series that I do have only 1 book left to read, the Dr. Greta Helsing series by Vivian. This is a trilogy, and I have read 2 of them, so I only have 1 left to go, and I've read the whole series so far on Audible, and I have book 3 good to go. I've downloaded it, I just haven't listened to it, and I hope to make time for it. When I first found this series, I just assumed that it was gonna just be vampires, which I love vampire books, because Helsing, I just thought vampires, but this book isn't just about vampires. So Dr. Helsing is a doctor to the undead in whatever forms they take, and she investigates paranormal and supernatural goings on, and I'm really loving the series so far. The first book took place in London, and there was a murdery cult of monks, which, I mean, that sounded fascinating, and it was such a good book. The second book in the series took place in Paris. I love reading books that take place in Paris, so obviously I was gonna be hooked by this. And the second book included a vampire gang. I love a vampire story, but like I said, there's so much more than just vampires. There's mummies, there's zombies, there's all sorts of supernatural, human-esque characters and creatures, and I just think that this series just keeps giving me more and more the more I read. The third and final book takes place in a spa in Marseille with mummies. It's a spa for mummies. Why would I not want to read that? I only have one book left in this series, and I hope I get to it because it sounds really good, and I would love to be able to have this series completed. The next series I would really like to finish is the Vampire Genevieve series by Kim Newman / Jack Yeovil, and this series is a 4-book series, but it's not 4 novels, it's 2 novels and then 2 books of short stories. I am currently halfway through this series and I am really enjoying it so far. I love a vampire book, and I love a vampire book where the protagonist is a female vampire. I play Warhammer and I paint Warhammer figures. I'm a Nighthawk Army girl and I play Age of Sigmar. So for me, it's just been an absolute treat reading a book that's set in the world that I know from Warhammer, but it's set before the events happened to make the worlds that I know in Warhammer. So it's almost like a prequel to a fantasy world that I'm familiar with, but I'm not familiar with the fantasy world that it used to be, which is it's very strange to get my head around, but I'm loving the series so far. The world is sort of almost kind of like medieval-esque, but we've had plays and there's theatres, and it's just the whole concept of there being theatres within the Warhammer world is so exciting. I'm loving the series because of the characters. I absolutely love Genevieve. She looks like she's 16, but she is much older, much wiser, and she's just so intelligent and so patient. And while this is a series about a vampire, it's so much more than that. It's a fantasy series and it's so immersive and it's a little bit dark. It's perhaps darker than I would normally read, but I'm really enjoying it. I only own the first 2 books, so one novel, 1 set of short stories, but my boyfriend does have the entire collection downstairs. It's just one giant tome of a book, so I am going to borrow that and hopefully finish the series. I'm really interested to see where the series goes and how it ends. The next series is a series that I'm not super far into, but I do own the entire series, so there is no real reason for me not to finish it. And that series is Magic 2.0 by Scott Meyer, and this is a 6-book series of which I am only 2 books in, but I have the rest of the books on audiobook. I've read the whole series on audiobook so far, so it sort of feels like that's how I should finish it. The basic premise for the series is that the protagonist, Martin, has learned that he can manipulate reality using computer programming. As you would expect, because he can manipulate time, he gets into a little bit of trouble and decides to escape into a computer programming world, a world made out of computer programming. Clearly I don't know IT enough to explain that. And the world that he escapes to is very in the realm of King Arthur, and it's just full of these guys just living their Merlin dreams because they've also found the computer program, and it's pretty cool. I'm really enjoying just reading about these guys who are pretty much just LARPing around as wizards, and they've got staffs and hats, and it's just so fun. It feels like just such a unique concept, and me trying to explain computer programming is hilarious. I know nothing about it, but it makes me want to learn computer programming, because if I can find well, maybe not a medieval world, that wouldn't be good times for a woman, but some sort of world that I could escape to, that would be pretty cool. The last series that I hope and aim to complete this year. One could argue is a bit of a lofty goal because it's a series I only started in December, and that is the Witches series by Terry Pratchett. So I only read my first Terry Pratchett book in December because I'm an idiot and I didn't read something that everybody told me I would love, and I ended up loving it. I have read one book so far, but I'm already halfway through the second book because I'm just enjoying the series so much that I'm whizzing my way through, it feels. The series is just fun. It's just absolute fun and whimsy, which is what I love in a fantasy series. The series is all about the witches, of course, who are mainly older women, and it delves into how magic is different for witches than it is for wizards. The witches don't use magic a whole lot. They use sort of psychology and intelligence and medicine, but they are capable of magic when needed. The series is just so witty and full of just morals and life lessons. It's basically a series of fairy tales for adults. The main witch that I've experienced so far is Granny Weatherwax, who is just sassy and grumpy. These books seem to just have so much going on in them, so a lot of different storylines happening concurrently, and then they all seem to just be related, which I love that in a book. I love when everything just comes together. When I was reading the first book, I just thought I want an entire series of Granny Weatherwax, and lo and behold, there is an entire series of Granny Weatherwax, so my wish was granted. And yeah, I'm so excited to finish this series, and I know it's a little bit weird to add it to my list when I have only just started it, but my momentum is here and I don't want to stop reading it. So those are my 5 series that I hope to complete in 2022. I have no real reason not to, other than time. So if my maths is correct, I have 14 books to read, and then I will be finished with my 5 series. Of those 14 books, it's 12 books and 2 short story collections. I think that's an achievable goal. Thanks for watching. Bye!